Hello and welcome back. This video today is about my model of the Isabella Coke Works. The Isabella Coke Works was a real operation that was located in Cokeville, Pennsylvania, just across the Conemaugh River from Blairsville, Pennsylvania. Uh, and actually, the tracks came across the river from Blairsville, and there was a spur right across the river that led to the Isabella Coke Works. Now, the Isabella Coke Works existed in the latter part of the 19th century and in the very, very early part of the 20th century. Went out of business in 1903. It provided coke for the Isabella blast furnaces in Etna, Pennsylvania. Now, my model takes place in the 1950s, early 1950s. So I'm taking some poetic license here and assuming that the Isabella Coke Works did still exist in the early part of the 1950s. And a lot of beehive coke operations still did exist in the early 50s. So we're assuming, in at least in my layout, that it still did exist. So I try to model it. I have no pictures of the actual operation, the Isabella Coke Work operation when it did take place. So I'm trying to model it like most beehive coke oven operations that did exist in Pennsylvania in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. The actual Isabella Coke Works had 200 ovens. My model only has 36 ovens. But I'm trying to be as faithful as I can to the cooking process. And so let's go take a look. By the way, thanks for watching. Okay, we're going to start this tour of the Isabella Coke Works with a view down the back side of the coke ovens. These are ovens number 19 through 36. In the far distance there on the left is a tipple, the silver structure. It's a tipple. You can see the sign on it. It says Isabella Coke Works. In front of the tipple is a steam engine, and it has some hopper cars. The hopper cars have just brought coal in from the Lazar Brothers Coal Company, and the coal is being dropped into a pit and then loaded into a bucket elevator, and the bucket elevator runs along the left side of the tipple there, and it's taken up and discharged into the tipple. Then the tipple will be used to discharge the coal into Larry cars that will carry the coal into the coke ovens, which I'll show you in a minute. Here's a close-up of the tipple. In the middle there, in that silver column, is a bucket elevator. To the left, you see a number of hoppers. Two of the hoppers have coal in them. They have yet to be unloaded. They've come from the Lazar Brothers Coal Company. The hoppers that are in front of those loaded hoppers, they're unloaded. They've already dumped their coal into the pit to be loaded into the tipple. What happens is the coal drops into the pit, and then there's a bucket elevator that takes the coal from the pit and loads it into the tipple here. You see the Isabella Coke Works sign on it. And then the tipple is used to discharge the coal into the Larry cars to be taken to the furnaces. Here we see a train of Larry cars. The Larry cars take the coal from the tipple to the coke ovens. You can see two of the Larry cars still have coal in them, have yet to be unloaded. The one Larry car there, the one on the left, has been unloaded. The coal goes out the bottom of the Larry car, down a little chute into the funnel. The funnel directs the coal into the coke ovens. And we're loading it through the port that allows the hot gases to escape when the coke's being heated. After coal was loaded to the ovens, generally they were hot enough for the coal to start burning. The ovens were sealed off with a small opening left. You can see there's a hole there at the top to let air in, to let the fire continue, and then the hot gases would go out the opening where the oven was loaded. Generally, this process to burn off all the impurities in the coal took 2 to 3 days. And what you were left with was coke, which was basically pure carbon, because the coal would have all the impurities burned out of it. Once the coking process is complete, the bricks are removed, and then the oven is quenched with water to cool down the coke. Here we see a man quenching a heat that has just been opened. You can see there's a pipe into the oven that sprays water into the oven, and there's a whole hose coming from the pipe, runs along the front of the ovens, and it actually comes from the water tower here. The water tower here provides the water for the quenching process. Once the oven's sufficiently cooled, the coke's removed from the oven. Here the coke is being raked out of the oven. There's a man with a rake pulling the coke out of the oven. Then we have a couple guys there with shovels. They'll take the finished coke and load it onto this belt elevator that will allow it to be loaded into a hopper car. In a lot of the operations, the track where the hopper car was set down lower, so all they had to do was take the coke and just move it over and dump it into the hopper car with a wheelbarrow. But in my operation here, I'm using this belt elevator. The coking operations did produce some slag. Here we see a slag pile at the end of my operations on my layout. The slag will be picked up by this crane and transferred into a gondola car, where it'll eventually be disposed of. Generally, they actually reuse it in a lot of different operations. So either be reused of or disposed of properly, I would like to say. But anyway, I also included this in my model. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a little bit about the coking process. Beehive coke ovens were very, very heavy in the United States in the early part of the 20th century. In fact, I read where there was probably over 40,000 ovens operating in around 1911, 1912. However, shortly after that, they started to be phased out because they did produce a lot of pollutants. They were not very environmentally friendly. The last beehive coke ovens operating in the United States were in Shove, Pennsylvania, and they shut down in 1972. So there are no more beehive coke ovens in the United States, although in China they actually ran into the mid-90s before they were banned. Now the coking process does take place, but it takes place in environmentally controlled operations and furnaces. So there's no pollutants that are being driven out. Anyway, thanks for watching this video.